It is quarter 3, week 8, day 2. For your first assignment, make sure you take your attendance. But for your first assignments, I would like you to define what slope and y-intercept means based on the context of the problem. So the same thing that we did yesterday for this first assignment. So when we look at question 1 on this assignment here, we want to identify what does the slope mean, and then we also want to know what does the y-intercept mean. So if you remember from yesterday, we want to consider the following situations, subsequent graph, select the appropriate description for the slope and the y-intercept. Pick just one for slope and one for y-intercept. Okay, so what does that mean? So when we think of the y-intercept, right, it's right here. It's always on the y-axis. That's our starting place. So the y-intercept is always going to mean where you start. Y-intercept represents the amount of money you started with. Your slope is going to be the change in y over the change in x. And so when we talk about what that means as far as in the problem, it basically means title of the y per whatever the title of the x is. And so it's going to be title of the y, title of the x, or per the title of the x. So when we're looking at that, we got to know the titles of the y first. So this says amount earned in dollars. So slope represents the amount earned. Okay, that works. Slope represents the number of tables. No, there's no tables over here. Slope represents the amount of money. So it could be, it looks like the first one or the third one. And then you have to finish it. So it should say slope represents the amount of money earned per number of tables. So slope, that's the first one. And so the reason it's not the third one is because it's started with. Well, that's just trying to trick you because that's not what slope means. That's what the y-intercept means. For the second one, same thing. It's going to be the title. We're going to start with slope. It's going to be the title of the x per the title of the y. So number of guests per 1,000, and then the temperature. So slope represents the temperature per the number of guests. No. Slope represents the number of guests per the temperature. Yes. Slope represents the number of guests you start with. Slope represents the number of guests that you have per the temperature. Title of the y per the title of the x. And then the y-intercept is where you start at. So the y-intercept represents the number of guests you start with. Make sure that it's the title of the y. Sometimes they'll try to trick you and be like, oh, the y-intercept represents the temperature you start with. But that's not the case. It's the title of the y.